Hi, I'm Alcorn. I'm VP of R&D for Atari most of the time, up until about 81.
Hi, I'm Mike Hally, worked at Atari from 1977 to 2002. Wow.
I'm Owen Rubin. I was there from early 76 to middle of 84.
Steve Bristow, Al Alcorn, and I were co-op students working with Nolan Bushnell before Atari.
You interviewed me.
And I was at various VP of engineering, actually ran the pinball plant for one session. And after 84, then kept going to Data East, where I had my own personal experiences with Gary Stern, since Stern was on by Data East. And I've gone into TV games with various toy game companies too.
And phones.
And I'm Steve Ritchie, and I work for Atari from, that was my introduction to the coin-operated game business, and I walked in the doors, I think, in 1974, and ended up leaving in 1978 to go to Williams, and then I went back to Atari after Williams bought Atari in 1996, and worked there from 1996 till 2000.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so how are we going to open it up for questions, or do we
Let's do questions.
do questions? We have a funny story.
Go ahead.
The play testing for Gravitar. I want to know exactly how that got to market the way it is.
Okay, well, it was actually, what was it called, Scott?
Lunar Battle.
Lunar Battle was the original game. There was a kid that worked at Atari. His name was Mark Cerny. He's gone on to quite a bit of fame. He was 17. He had to have his parents sign the form so he could actually work there. He would come into my lab every morning, and we would play the game together, and he was my tester. And I didn't realize at the time that, Boy Genius was, an incredible video game player. So the two of us we'd play the game and be like, it's kind of hard, but not really. So that was my introduction. I learned a valuable lesson that, you probably shouldn't design a game that only 1% of people can possibly play.
It's worth pointing out that that lab was shared with Major Havoc that was being designed at the same time. So Mark was playing and designing the high-end levels of that game as well.
Yeah.
And I learned that same thing. I still can't get through all those levels.
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard towards the end of when all the games were being liquidated and stuff, they just throw a bunch of it away. Is that true? They had a warehouse full of all different games, and when they were liquidating everything, when the company was when they were ending everything, pinball,
Well,
all that. How did it
I remember a game manufacturing literally Space Lords. We had built one of Ed Logg's games. They couldn't sell them, so they literally hauled them out in between in front of the manufacturing building. People were breaking them up with sledgehammers. But as far as
pinball?
When pinball shut down, everyone was sold. I mean, they didn't go into inventory. And as we took down part of the pinball line, we put in home computer line right behind it, so the building just emptied out. And the parts went into customer service.
Yeah, with this chance, the early thinking when Atari going into pinball, and it's amazing to me, with the Atari games sitting alongside the contemporary games from Valley and Williams, what were some of the thought process in how Atari was going to do pinball in a way that was going to allow, not only entry into the market, but success into the market?
Where's Nolan when you need
well, obviously we were in Silicon Valley and we didn't have access to, nearly the skilled laborers and the people who would, make all the sheet metal parts and stuff. So, obviously somebody decided that we'll go with the wide body to distinguish themselves. And then a lot of the, there was a lot more, there was a lot of electronics in it, and we didn't have all the, we didn't build all the little mechanical stuff.
We made stuff up. I mean, we had electronic rollers,
If I may,
do it better.
It was Nolan's desire from day one, in 1972, to build a pinball machine. And Nolan had a couple of ideas, or beliefs, let's call it beliefs. I believe, right? And the wide body was this invention he had from day one. The other thing you got to realize is that we went computerized, we got computer solid state. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that was a good idea. I kind of like the old relay stuff, but we couldn't compete with Chicago. They were rolling coils. They started with dirt and ore. and so in the Valley, Nolan fell in love with the rotary.
Leadex rotary.
Yeah, it's like, God, no, and it's just the linear solenoid with a shitty cam on it. I was revolutionizing.
I can't tell you how much
10,
time I
15.
spent talking to him about that. I had to tell him, and I mean, while we were testing the game, he couldn't be out there every day and see how
Right.
destroyed they got.
Right. So Nolan had these, God bless him, he had these beliefs. It never would have gone there if it hadn't. And half of them were really good, the other half were not so good. And so that's how we did it, and we had to go make a computerized pinball machine. And we didn't really, I don't think we got that right till Superman, was probably the best electronics.
But we made
did.
stuff up. Do you remember pinball, B-O-L? We made this.
Can you say that again, please?
We made this language, pinball, B-O-L, because
yeah.
we wanted the designers to be able to program it themselves, right?
And then there's stories, so we were doing the pinball division about the same time we were doing the Atari, the VCS chip. And we had this CalMA, the graphic computer for chip layout stuff. And we had a trivia meeting around April 1st, this was 74 probably.
It's in the new building, so.
Yeah, and so Nolan decided to convince everybody in the coin-out business, all our customers, this was April Fool's, that we had this new computer that could percentage of pinball playfield electronically. We're going to rule the industry. And we brought them all down on buses and showed them this thing. It was all bullshit, and it worked really well. It was really fun.
Later, though, I did get a patent on automatic percentage.
There you go. It was real. Nolan was ahead of his time.
Moved to score, based on samples of 50 plays. Larry Moore and I put together a system. And then he gets his name first on the patent.
Atari was prone to do, without having the investment, like Al said, you could try new stuff. I mean, who else would have the insanity to build Hercules?
Right?
We had an amazing.
Just keeping it together with the amount of power in those
We had an
cylinders.
amazing shop there, like Jerry Lychek.
Jerry Lychek.
Who could turn out mechanical things, that you hadn't seen before, and they worked.
And one of the pinball designers, just Steve was showing you pictures of Mrs. Rosenthal at Stern. We actually, after Bob Jonasy left, we brought in her husband, Marty Rosenthal, and he was actually worked and gave us he's the one that decided you could build Chuck E. Cheese mechanisms like you build pinball mechanisms. So that's why the first Chuck E. Cheese had electric flag wavers and stuff.
I do have a story about Marty Rosenthal, and that was his 5-bank drop target. I don't know if you remember this. It had a coil that was 3 inches in diameter to lift 5 targets. The whole unit would have warped any playfield. One day he came in and it was tied to his door with a piece of rope. It said, the Marty Rosenthal boat anchor.
He left that.
He did.
Not immediately. Someone over here.
I always enjoyed the sounds of the pinball machines, and I thought that's what they made that was unique about them. Who developed the sounds, different sounds that they made?
I think the answer to that is probably Eugene Jarvis. He's probably the first guy.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys had something. I say
But we had sound
We're
routines
talking about
for video
the
games.
you
I think you're right. Eugene worked on the sound stuff
As
there.
far as pinball goes, Eugene was a pioneer in that area. He had some great software. And actually, we together once we were messing around with Superman before I left, and I brought in this thing called an Echoplex. It was like A long time ago, if you played the electric guitar and you wanted echo, it had to be tape